Good afternoon, everybody. It's a little after 5 o'clock on Tuesday, which means it's time for math. My name is Jeremy Jasper with KathleenJasper.com. And for the next hour, we're going to do all things math for your teacher certification exams. I'm coming to you a few minutes late because it was rainy day dismissal and my daughter, I got to pick her up from the bus stop and I didn't want to let her walk home in the rain. So I apologize for being just a few minutes late. So I'm going to go ahead, get everything set up. Give yourselves a second to go ahead and log in and have all of your materials ready to go. Make sure you have your calculator, make sure you have your scratch paper. And as soon as I get all of my stuff up and ready, we're just going to go ahead and blow through these problems and get everything done just like you guys would like me to do so you can get on with the rest of your night. So if you have any comments, please make sure to go ahead and put them in the comment section, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. That way I can see. And if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to go ahead and answer those for you. And as soon as I pull this up, I think we're going to be ready to go. And perfect. Okay. So it's the middle of September, past the middle of September. You're all done with preschool and getting kids in, and now it's, go time until the next break, which is Thanksgiving. So it's a tough one. It's a tough part of the year because it's so overwhelming, especially for those of you that are on temp certificates, new teachers, first, second, third year teachers. It's important, if this is hanging over your head, your certification exam, that you get it done as soon as possible. So for the next, however long it takes me to do these 10 problems, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to try and get through them as fast as I can, as if we were taking the test, show you little tips and tricks that you can do in order to succeed and be efficient on these exams. First, we're going to start out with this. I know my wife put this one together for me. That's why it's got the nice, pretty signature there at the bottom. So we had a bunch of requests and she went ahead and just got this ready for me. So factoring, I know, was one of them. And this all depends on what you're allowed to get on the test. So obviously, if you have a calculator, and again, it's important, if you are allowed to use a calculator on your exam, make sure you know which model calculator you can use and then get that calculator. Don't practice with your phone because you're not going to have that type of calculator on the exam. Some tests will allow a calculator to pop up on the screen that you can use. If you look up that test, there will be, it's called an emulator or a little simulator that you can use on the actual screen that you can download so that you can get practice with that calculator. For a question like this, where it says, which of the following is a factor of 256? First, I have to understand the word factor. Factor means I can multiply the factor, any one of these, by any other number, being a whole number, and get this answer. So it's, it's basically saying you can take 16 times a number and get 256, right? So if you do that, basically you just say, well, if I divide it by, or I divide it into 256, I should get a whole number. That's all factors are, okay? If you have a calculator, you just go down the list and you start with 256. You go 256 divided by 16, and you get 16 because that's 16 squared. Oops. Right? So because I get 16 is a factor of 256 because 16 times 16 equals 256. A is going to be our answer. All right. There's different ways of doing it if you don't have a calculator. First off, 512 cannot be a factor of 256. You cannot have a number greater than the number that you're looking for be a factor. So right away, right? Because it's more than how can you do 512 times some number and get an answer that's less than 512? You can only do that if it's a fraction or less than 1. So that's not going to work. And then 125, usually with the big ones, if I did 125 and 125, I get 250. And that's too close to 256. You know that's not going to work. So with the bigger numbers, just kind of do that. Plus, it's got a 5 on the end. Anytime we have 5s on the ends, remember? So if there's a 5 on the end, that means that the only answers you're going to get are going to end in a 0 or a 5, because it's going to be, like in this case, it's 250. Then it's 375, but there's a 5 at the end. And if you keep going, there'll be a 0 at the end. And it's the only thing that you can do. So that eliminates that real quick. So now it just leaves you with the 16 and the 28. And again, you just kind of figure out from there where to go. Okay. You can break these down. All right. So you can factor them out as far as, and again, this is if you don't have a calculator at your disposal. So just always start bouncing around with the 2s. And so that's 128. I should have done that in my head. Then this one's going to be 64. 2 and 64, and then 2, 8, and 8. And you can see if I factor this out, or how do I get 28? Well, I need a 4 and a 7. Well, I got no 7s here. So that's how you can tell that it's not going to work out, because of the 7 right here. So just breaking these up, seeing how, C and D first off to get rid of those, and then which ones are closest with A and B using your factoring skills. All right. So A is the answer for that one. Okay. For this one, it says which number has the same prime factors as 24? So you have to find the prime factors of 24 if you don't know them already. And then which one of these numbers, these answer choices, shares those same prime factors. So how can that be? Are the same prime factors, but get 2 different numbers? So I'm going to show you. First off, what is a prime number? Prime numbers are numbers that can be divided by 1 and itself. So 1 is a prime number. 2 is a prime number, right? Because 2. And then 3 is a prime number. If I did 4, what are my numbers for 4? I'm sorry. So I can do 2 times 2, and that's not the case, or that shouldn't be the case, because it should be 1 in itself. So that's why even numbers are not prime numbers. But so it's usually just odd. So 5, 7, 9, 11, and so on. You get the idea. So these are our prime factors. Which number prime factor? 24. So we do 24 and break it down. I always start with 2. 2 is a prime factor. So I see you got 2 here. Then it's 12. So then break it down again. I've got 2, and then 6, and then 2 and 3. So there's 1, 2, 3 2s and 1 3 as my prime factors for 24, which is 2 to the 3rd power and then times 3. My prime factors are 2 and 3. That's it. It's just the 2 and the 3. So now out of these numbers here, which ones have only 2 and 3 as their factors? So once we found that, just kind of do this for you. Now let's go through the answer choices. Okay. First off, I want to see C15 ends in a 5. 24 does not end in a 5. 5s are only 5s and 0s. They got to end in 5s and 0s. That's out right away. Anything that ends in a 5, and they usually put that on these tests as your answer choice, as filler, but you should know right away, unless it ends in a 0 and a 5, there's no way that can be its prime factor. So A is out. Then we've got 12, 34, 19. 19 is a prime number, which means 19 and 1 are the only ways we can do 19 and make 19. So that's not going to be. So now we've got these two right here. Now you're thinking, well, in the last one, 34, it doesn't matter if the number is larger than what we're looking for because it's not a factor of the number. They want to know what are the prime factors. So we're going to do 12 and we're going to do 34. And we're going to see 12 is 2 and then 6. And then when we break it down again, 2 and 3. Well, 12 is equal to 2 squared 3. It's only got 2 and 3. That's what we're looking for. That's going to be the answer. 34, just to show you, we've got 2 and 17. And that's it. 17 is definitely not the same as 2 and 3. You can't break it down anymore. So that's why 34 is out. Okay. So it's just basically solving these as quick as possible. You know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, make sure you practice this competency. But it's all about time and doing things quickly. So saying 24, just before even looking at anything, I'd say 24, look at the answer choices. 15 and 19 would be gone right away, just because I know 15 with the 5 and 19, it's a prime number. So then I'm just left with 12 and 34, solve 12 and 34, and you're good to go. Okay. All right. Number 3 says, which of the following pairs of numbers have the same prime factors? So we're doing the same thing again. All these are just, it's kind of tedious, okay, which means it's going to take time to actually go through each answer choice. There's really no way to shortcut it other than, let's start with A. I've got 10 and I've got 12. Well, what do I tell you about ending in 0s and 5s? There's no way I'm going to get the same prime factors because this has to be have a 5 or a 10 in it because it ends in a 0. So 12 is not going to work out in this case because it's 10s, which is 2 and 5, right? Because 2 and 5 not going to work out with the 12, which is just like we did it again. It's 2 and 6 or 2, 2 and 3. So A is out. Then we go to 18 and 24. 18, 24. We've got 2 and then 9, which is breaks down to 3 and 3. So I've got 2 and 3 for 18. And again, we're just looking for same prime factors. They don't have to be the same amount. So 2s and 3s. So I just got to know 18 can only have 2 and 3 for it to work with 24. And when we do that, we got 2, 12, 2, 6, 2, 3, 2s and 3s. That's going to be our answer. Okay. Let's see, we got 2, 3, and 3, 2, 2, 2, and 3. Again, doesn't matter that this one has 3 2s and this one has 1 2. They're still the same prime factors of only 2 and 3. I'll quickly do the other ones just so you can see in case they're not always in this order where you got to go through most of them. 16 and 28. That gives me 4 and 4. And the reason I did that is because that'll give me 2, 2, 2, and 2. So we see that these are all 2s. And then I've got 4 and 7. This throws us off, or this is like a red flag because 7s are weird factors. And unless, any other number that has a 7 is going to be obviously in a multiple of 7. And these usually are never the ones because it's just an odd factor to have. So that one's out. And then finally, you see the 15 and the 30. 15 and 30, I know I can do 5 and 3. I can do 5 and 6. But then once I get down here, I get 2 and 3. So it's close, but this 2 throws us off. So that's why it can't be the same. and B is the answer. Okay. All right. Some inequalities. Solving the inequality 6y is greater than 4y plus 7. It's just like I tell my students when we do these, you solve it just like if it was an equation. Don't let that sign confuse you. Now, there's rules for these signs, and we'll get into that in the next couple problems because somebody had that. But for this one, we're just going to solve it just like normal. Don't let that crazy arrow fool you. So we're going to rewrite it because remember, this is a test on a computer. So unless you can do it all in your head, and again, if you're comfortable with that, by all means do so. But you will be doing this on scratch paper. So write it out and get into the habit of writing it out. That's why I say use scratch paper. You got to get in the habit of using that time that it takes to look at the screen and copy down the correct numbers and then solve it. So with 6y, 4y, I always want to bring the small variable over to the large variable, which means I want to subtract 4y. So then that's going to cancel out and give me 2y is greater than 7. So I'm sorry, dividing by 2, not a negative. So the sign doesn't change, gives me, and I'm looking at the answer choices too to glance out. I would do y is greater than 7 over 2. I do that because I look and I see they're having fraction form. Otherwise, 7 over 2 is equal to 3.5. So if you did it in a calculator, you come out with 3.5 and just say, oh, wait a second, and then just kind of go back. It's okay. You just did one step too many with your calculator. Leave it as the 7.2. So y greater 7.2. We see everything y on the left side. That's good. Eliminate anything that doesn't have a greater than sign, which is this one and this one. And A is positive, C is negative. That's the difference. A is the correct answer here. Okay. All right. Okay. A rectangular backyard is fenced in using 224 feet of fencing. All sides are fenced except the side against the house. If the length of the house is 80 feet, how wide is the backyard? Okay. So it's a pretty good problem because it throws something in there that you're not used to seeing. Understand that we have a rectangular backyard. Because we have a rectangular backyard, there are certain properties that go along with it. So go ahead and draw your rectangular backyard. Here's my rectangular backyard. All sides are fenced except the side against the house. So we're going to make this the house. Does that make sense? So this is the house. I've got a backyard. This is my fence. Let me do this to help illustrate. I'm going to highlight it in red. So everything in red is my fence. I know I got that blue over there, but just so you can see this blue line right here, that's the house. You don't have to put a fence against your house, right? Because the whole purpose is to fence in and have a border around everything so nothing can get out. So you can go from your house right to, okay, just saying. So now, given what we have, the length of the house is 80 feet. How wide is the backyard? So the length, I'm going to put, probably should have drew it lower, but let's do this. Let's do 80 feet. So I've got 80 feet here. Now remember, this is a rectangle. Okay. So if it's 80 feet here, that means that it would be, that means that we only have to fence this red is 224 feet. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So if we have 200 124 feet of fencing, and we take 80 feet away because that represents this length here, we are left with, I believe it's 144. We have 144 feet of fencing left. That 144 feet of fence means it's this piece and this piece. Okay, we don't have to fence this piece right here. There's no fence there. So what we do is take that 144. Let's do 144 divided by 2 and get gosh, 72, right? So this 144 gets split up into 2 equal pieces because this is a rectangle. Rectangles are opposite sides are the same. So this is 80 feet in length here. That means the house is also 80 feet in length, right? That's how I got the length of that piece. Then I've got 72 feet here and 72 feet here. That makes up the entire length of the fence, 72 feet, then 80 feet across, then 72 feet back. Add those up, you'll get 224 feet. They want to know how wide is the backyard. 72 is your width. B is your answer. Okay. The part against the house is the one that confuses a lot of people because some think you go, okay, well, it's 80 feet against the house. So it's 80 feet here. So then I do 72 and 72. So you would break it up even further. And that's not the case. Okay. Sorry, excuse me. All right, next one. Clive is painting a design in the middle of the museum floor. His design consists of 3 triangles, each with a height of 6 feet and a base of 10 feet, and 1 rectangle that's 18.5 feet and a base of 10 feet. If each can of paint covers 250 square feet, what is the minimum number of cans we need to buy? So let's draw these out just so you can see them. I've got 3 triangles, 1, 2, 3, and then I've got a rectangle. So my height is going to be 6 and the base of 10. So just all of these like that. I'm doing this so you can get a visual. And then I've got 18.5 feet in a height and a base of 10. Well, let's do 18. I'm going to do the 0.5 just so I don't like dealing with the fractions. And then it's 10 right here. And we want to know how many cans of paint we'll need. So with the triangles here, you can do 1 triangle. So area of a triangle, put it up here. Area of triangle is equal to 1/2 base height, which means I take my base and my height, which are 6. So I'm going to do 1/2, but again, 1/2 we'll do 0.5. Then we'll do base. The base is 10 and a height of 6. So that finds out 1 triangle. But I have 3 triangles. So just go ahead and string it along. You don't have to find the area of each one. I'm showing all of them to you so you can see it, but you don't have to find the area of each one because you just multiply that amount by 3. In doing so, either using your calculator or whatever, 0.5 times 10 is 5. 5 times 6 is 30. 30 times 3 is 90. That gives me 90 square feet for all my triangles. Then area of a rectangle. Let's do area of rectangle is just equal to base times height. That's just going to give me 18.5 times 10, which is 185. Go ahead, add these 2 numbers together, and you will end up with 275 square feet. Now, each can of paint covers 250 square feet. Obviously, 275 is bigger than 250, So we know we're going to need more than one paint can. But if it's every 250, so then it goes 250, 500, 750, 1,000. You already know right then and there, 2 is going to be your number, and then off you go. It's just more important finding out the area of your triangles and your rectangles. More importantly, with the 3 triangles, it's multiplying them by 3. So doing the equation for 1 and then multiplying by 3 just to make your work a little bit easier. Okay. All right. Moving right along. Okay, here we go. Here's what I was talking about before. We've got inequalities, except when we want to solve them, we want to graph them. So this is the solution. This shows all the solutions that you can possibly have for this inequality. So first thing is first, we need to go ahead and solve it. So let's rewrite it as 3 minus 4x is greater than or equal to negative 13. Taking into account of the variable, it's on the left side and there's only 1. So we're going to leave it and we're going to move everything else away. So it's minus 3 cancels us out. We have negative 4x greater than or equal to negative 16. Divide by negative 4 because we want to solve for x. Important, I've got a negative here. A negative is going to switch my sign. Anytime we divide by a negative, you're switching the sign. So with inequalities, divide by a negative, switch the sign. This now becomes, cancels out, x is now less than or equal to negative and a negative make a positive. 16 divided by 4 gives me 4. So x is less than or equal to 4. Okay. With inequalities, in this case, I've got a less than or equal to, and then there's the possibility of less than. Anytime it's got an equal to, you have a filled in circle. Anytime it has just less than or just greater than, it's an open circle. It means it cannot be that number, right? It's like a force field around that number. You can't be that number, but you can be less than it or you can be greater than it. If it's filled in, that means you can be that number. When the variable, see how the variable here is on the left side? A little trick is to look at the arrow of the inequality. If you look at this arrow at the inequality, it's pointing to the left. So we find our 4. Okay. First, we find the closed circle. So B is out and D is out because they have open circles. Then we find the 4. They're both on 4, but the arrow is pointing to the left. So that means C is going to be the correct answer because it points to the left. This only works when the variable is in the first position. First position is this right here, where it's on the left side of the inequality. Also, the other way to do this is to just speak it out loud. As you read this as x is less than or equal to 4. So you would put your pen or pencil on 4, and this you can do on the screen if you wanted to, but I'm putting it on the screen here at 4. And then I say less than. Well, which way is less than this 4? Well, less than just goes this way, right? So just go ahead and follow that line and make sure that it goes that way. If I were trying it here, see how it go less than, I'd say, uh-oh, that's not where the line goes. That can't be the answer. Okay. Okay. All right. Quick question on, it looks like the previous one. Back to rectangular. Why do you subtract 200 by 80 and divide by 2? Okay. So, just going back to the steps of this one, you know that the house is 80. Let me get rid of these. Okay. You know that the house is 80. Because it's a rectangle, it means that this value is also 80. because I know this is 80, I take it away from the total fencing that they've given me. See how they gave me 224 feet as fencing? That's why I do this right here. Then I have 144 feet. That's what's left. You have to divide that equally because it's a rectangle, because both sides are the same. And then when you get that number, divide it by 2, and then you get 80, 72, and 72. Okay, you divide the 200, it's the 224 by 80 because they already gave you the value of the house, which means that's the value of the back part of the fence. Okay, all right. Okay, next question. Choose the answer choice that represents the solution set of the inequality. Okay, we got another one. This time we've got a little more work to do. So same concept applies. And right away, so now starting to use what we know. First off, look at the inequality. Inequality says less than. So I don't care if it's less than and then it's going to change to a greater than, but I know that it can never be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Therefore, you can eliminate 2 of the answer choices, which are C and D, because they have closed circles, which means they have equal tos. And honestly, as we go through this, and you'll be able to see this, I'll do the work for you, but you see how all of them are on the number 1. So I know that it's going to be a less than or greater than 1, which is pretty good because they're all saying that. So that's how I know that's what it's going to be. The way that I can tell if the sign changes, see how it's already less than? Well, it all depends upon if our variables are negative or positive. And so I see that I've got the 2 here. If I bring the 2 over here in my head, I know that I'm going to have 3x, and it's a positive 3x, which means I don't divide by anything. So look where the sign is going. It's going to say 3x is greater than whatever. And so that means pretty much that it's going to be this one because it's going greater. So that's how I would do this during a test, just using my shortcuts, because I can tell that I'm not going to change the sign. And it goes 5x is greater than, and then that's the answer. So now let me do the work for you, because I know that was pretty fast, but you can get to that point if you practice it that way. That way you don't have to spend so much time solving these things. So we'll rewrite it as 2x minus 9 is less than 5x minus 12. Okay. Remember, small goes to the big. So we want to subtract 2x, subtract 2x. Cancel me out. I've got negative 9 less than 3x minus 12. Keep the variable on one side, get the 12 to the other. I now have 3 less than 3x. Divide by 3, divide by 3. I've got 1 is less than x. Now, here is where some people may get confused. 1 less than x. Remember when I said you can look at the arrow and that'll tell you where to go? So we know it's 1. So we know it's going to be either A or B, obviously, because it's the 1. But now, see how it's the less than sign, and that arrow points to the left. But I told you, you can only do that when you have the x in the first position. This is not the first position. This is the first position. So it's backwards. So when it's this case, you can either flip it or just read it out loud. But start with the x. It says x is greater than 1. So if it says x is greater than 1, start at 1 and then go greater than. So I'll start with A. I'll start here and go greater. I'll start here and then go greater than. Well, that line doesn't follow, so that doesn't work. I'll try it on this one. X is 1 and then greater than. There we go. That one works out. B is the correct answer. Okay. if you wanted to flip it, I'll put it over here. If you want to flip it, 1 less than x, just start with the x. So just flip everything around, do x and 1, and then change the sign. Okay. These say exactly the same thing. Okay. So try not to get confused on those. Use the shortcuts if you can, make your life a lot easier and save you some time. All right. I guess my Kathleen got, I guess, Monique, this is a shout out to you, she says. So here you go. Problem she sends in is Forrest is performing a magic trick and tells his friends to do the following. Think of a number, subtract 7 from that number, divide your answer by 5, cube the result. Which of the following could be used to represent these steps? So when you get instructions like this, where it's the words and then you have to put it into math, like you have to make the equation or you have to just put the math down, they can be tricky sometimes. So we'll start with, we've got think of a number and then go right to your answer choices. See how they're using n as their number. We always want to go with x or y just because that's pretty much the standard. And if you start with if you do a different letter than what's in the answer choice, I know it's not that big of a deal, but it may just confuse you because some people it's like, well, wait a second, how do I know it's n? So just look at the answer choice. I know n is going to be my number. So that's what I'm going to use. So I'm thinking of a number. My number is n. So let's write down n. Then it says subtract 7 from that number. So how do we subtract 7? Well, we just take 7 away. Nothing fancy here. Sometimes when we use subtraction, it's the opposite. But for this case, we're taking 7 away. So take 7 away. So we're all good there. And we look at our answer choices, and I can eliminate this right here because that's the wrong way. Next, it says divide your answer by 5. So that means take the whole answer, whatever you get from it. And now I'll tell you what I like to do. If it's telling me to do this, I want to group these just because I know that I was supposed to do this first because it says subtract 7 from number. Then it says divide your answer by 5. So whatever I get from n minus 7, I need to divide by 5. And so far we're looking pretty good on all 3. Then it says to cube the result. So cubing the result, that means all of this that I just did, I'm going to put it in another set of parentheses just to hold it there. And cubing means to do to the power of 3. And so it'd be this right here. Now, if you look at the answer choices, you'll notice none of them look like the way that I have it. And that's just because I like to bracket things off and put things parentheses whenever I can, because it just helps me understand what to do first, right? Remember order of operations, it told me to subtract 7 from the number. So inside parentheses first. Well, I was, it could have gone off in many different ways. So that's why I put those parentheses there and then parentheses around it. But the one that's exactly the same is going to be C, because because we didn't do anything else after we took away 7 and divide it, that stands alone by itself. N minus 7 over 5 is the same as saying take something away from 7, then divide it. Okay. And then cube the answer. So get that answer. That's why it's in parentheses, and then cube it. A does not work. N minus 7 is right. Then divide by 5. Order of operations says I have to, in this one, take this 7, divide it by 5 first, right? Because division is more powerful than subtraction, then take it away from n. So that's why A will not work. And then D says n minus 7, then cube it. See how it's parentheses and then cubed? That means to cube it. And then once you get that answer, then divide it by 5. So D will not work there. Just be mindful of your order of operations, especially when writing the equation out, if it's giving you a set number of parameters. Okay. All right. last one. And these always seem to slip in here just because that's how they do it. Okay. Which of the following is a function rule for the table given? When it says function rule, basically means what's the equation of the line? How do we find the equation of a line? I'm going to show you in pretty simple steps. So we've got, we always like to do this. Y is equal to mx plus b. This m right here, that's going to be my slope. This right here, y-intercept. The y-intercept is always 0, comma, and then whatever the y is, right? Because this is your x value. These are your x values here. Find the one that says 0, and then whatever you get for y, that's going to be your y-intercept, and that's what's going to go in this space of the equation right here. Okay, slope and intercept, that's what we're looking for. We're going to, I'll just put this up here, y equals mx plus b. With this, let me clear this out. So now let me show you what to do with the chart. The way that this works, and I'm just going to show you first, the difference between your values is going to be your slope. But it's important that you have consecutive values. What do I mean by consecutive values? Your x values. See how this goes 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. These are not consecutive values. 1 to 2 is, but then I should have 3. So what I encourage you to do is this. Kind of make your own chart. So I have 1 is 1, 2 is 4. I'm going to do 3. I don't know what that is. And I'm going to do 4 right here. And I know it's 10. So because this is a line, it's a function, it's a linear function. In this case, we're going to do the difference. So from here to here, from 1 to 4 is plus 3. So 4 plus 3, because it's got to be a function, is going to be 7. That makes sense? So 1, 4, and then if I did plus 3 again, I should get 10. So you see the pattern? Pattern is 3. And I told you that the difference between your y values is going to be your slope. 3 is your slope. 3 represents this number here. So we're going to go ahead and erase that and put 3x. And then do better 3. So that works all the time. As long as, see how this went 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why they trick you here. 1, 2, 4, 8. Now, if we kept going, then we did 5. If we did 10 plus 3, then plus 3, plus 3, plus 3. When we got to 8, you'd see you'd get the 22. Okay. So once I find out my slope, clean this up, right? We did these by 3. Now, what did I tell you about y-intercept? That we got to find this b value. See how this is at 1? Well, we can always go backwards too. 0 is what I want for my y-intercept because it's 0, comma, whatever the y is. I don't know what the y is. So what do? Well, we already found out what slope is. It's 3. So what if I did 4 minus 3? 4, I'm sorry, not 4 minus 3. 1 minus 3. 1 minus 3 is going to give me -2. Once I find out what my 0 is, I've got my y-intercept, and that's where that number goes. So now we have the b at -2. Now you can do all of this by finding the slope, which is do the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You get your slope that way. And then you take one of the points, any number of the points, and put it into the equation, and then do the math, and then solve for the b or the y-intercept. But I find this way much easier. And for most of the tests that you're going to get a problem like this with a chart like this. where it doesn't have any crazy numbers. It just, usually starts at 1. Sometimes it starts at 0, and then you don't even have to do the work there. They're just assessing the fact that you understand how to get an equation out of a set of points. So we've got our equation doing all that work. Now the next step is to find our answer. And the problem is they're going to give you answer choices like this. You like it nice and pretty. Let me rewrite this down here. It's y equals 3x minus 2. Y equals 3x minus 2. That's the equation for these set of points. But our answer choices are not written in the correct form, at least in the way that we like it, which is this slope-intercept form. So we need to go through our answer choices and kind of manipulate them, basically solve for y, and match it up with this one right here. So we go with A real quick. And I know, and you would do this in your head, like my thought process is this. Well, I've got to get this 3 out of here. So minus 3x minus 3x. That gives me a -2 and a -3x. Well, in this one, I've got -2, but that doesn't work because it's supposed to be positive 3x. So that's out of the question. So just to show you, so did it in my head, but if I've got y plus 3x equals -2 minus 3x minus 3x, that gives me y is equal to -3x minus 2. See how I did that? Not going to work out because it should be a positive. So then just go right down all of your answer choices, and we'll notice that I've got y minus 3x equals 2. Well, I know I'm going to have to move this over, but this 2 is going to stay the same. This 2 is a positive 2, and I need a -2. So B is out as well. See how I did that? And then the next one, I've got 3x minus y. Okay, this one's going to be different because it's a -y. So this one we may solve. 3x minus y is equal to -2. And I take my, you can do one or two things. I can, which way is easier for you guys? Let's do minus 3x so that I have -y is equal to -3x minus 2. But then I've got to divide by a negative because this is a negative. It'd be like saying 1y. So divide by -1, which changes all my signs to positive. And again, I've got +3, -2, not going to work. So by process of elimination, D is the correct answer. And we'll go ahead just to be safe and show you. Okay. 3x minus y equals 2. So we know we're going to minus 3x. -y is equal to -3x plus 2. Whenever you've got to change the sign, just change every sign. That goes positive, that goes positive, that goes negative. Positive 3x, check. -2, check. D is the correct answer. Okay. All right. More often than not, these problems, finding the equation is the easy part. It's when they screw with the answer choices. That's like a problem within the problem. So those are good to make sure you understand how to move things in and out. If you can do it in your head or do it in as few steps as you can without working out every single one, I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to just take problems like this, just find random equations and just solve for y, just moving things around, because it'll help you, especially when you get a negative sign like this, because you can also, in case you don't like dividing by a negative, which I try to avoid at all costs. So if I would have done 3x minus y equals 2, I can do plus y, which is plus y. That gives me 3x equals y plus 2. Then move the 2. And then you've got 3x minus 2 equals y. It's just flip the other way. Okay. All right. Answer choices are always at the last one. Let me see here. After the pain, how come you multiply by 0.5, 10, 23? So you divide 185 by 9. Okay. Here are my triangles. The question says, why do I multiply 0.5, 10, 6, and 3? Area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, or I'll put it here, 0.5. 0.5 and 1/2 are the same thing. Then base times height. So base is 10, height is 6. So I would do it here, except we want to do less work. So 0.5 times 6 times 10 gives me 30, which means this is 30. This is 30. Doing times 3 adds all of those together. And then dividing 185 by 90, I don't see what that is. We're adding. We did 185. You probably can't see that because of the signature. Oh, so I'll do it over here. 185, 90 gives me 275. And then you divide that by 250 because that's how many cans of paint, and you get 1.1. Anything greater than 1, you go to the next number, the next whole number. So this is going to be 2. This is roughly equal to 2 cans of paint. Okay. All right. You see, we got people on Facebook. Any comments? Anybody out there? And nope, no comments. Okay. All right, guys. That was it. Ended up getting it done by 6 o'clock. As always, if you have any questions whatsoever, go ahead and shoot me an email. info@KathleenJasper.com. You can go to KathleenJasper.com and you can click on the link there to send us an email. But anything math related gets forwarded to me, and then we go ahead and make the slides for the upcoming sessions. So with that being said, I hope everybody is doing well on their first month in school. If you are not signed up for your certification exams, please sign up for them. Make yourself have a date and a goal to look forward to. Get it out of the way as soon as you can. Sign up for the breaks, your Thanksgiving break and your Christmas breaks. Those are great times to take your tests. I know it doesn't sound good, but those are great times to sign up now to take those tests because you've got the break, you've got the time, you can do it in the early morning and then be done with it and get it out of your life. So get your certification test done. All right. That's it for me for tonight. I'm so glad you were all able to join me. Again, if you have anything, shoot me an email. We do more than just math. We've got all different sorts of things. So go ahead and check out our website, KathleenJasper.com. With that being said, it's always great to have you with me on a Tuesday. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. I'll see you next Tuesday.